Hi, Steve Sosnick here with today's Interactive Brokers Midday Market Update for Thursday, June 11th, 2020. It is an ugly day out there for most stockholders. The markets have really reversed a lot of the recent gains that we've been seeing. As we're taping this now, we're seeing the S&P and Dow down over 3% on the day. Nasdaq somewhat less, but it's a pretty ugly day for most common stockholders. The proximate causes, I've been asked this a number of times. You'll see the headlines. Stocks are down because of a second wave of infections and because of Fed Chairman Powell's comments yesterday. The second wave of corona, I guess maybe the market started paying attention to it, but this is something that's been a worry among many people for some time. I think I raised the question last week in one of the pieces. This is not something I'm rooting for by any means, but there are states that are seeing rises, and in some cases some worrisome rises, which are putting stress on the hospital system, which was the whole point of flattening the curve. To some extent, the national numbers have masked this because of the improvement in the Northeast and the tri-state area specifically, and so this is not something that could be put behind us. Why the market chose to notice this today? It's probably because it came in the wake of the chairman's statements yesterday. As I alluded to in yesterday's comments, the first move is usually the wrong one after a Fed release. And we saw the markets rally initially because the statement that came out pointed to more lower for longer, for more or less for the reasons that the economy was going to be lousy for a while. They see growth rates, negative growth rates for this year and next. Let me rephrase that. Negative growth rates for this year, but at a recovery at a pace that we won't be back to where we were until 2022, and that's a pretty long time to wait if you've priced in a big rebound in the economy. So I think as people started to digest that, and I think as the question and answer period came out during the news conference after, markets reassessed it. They didn't really panic yesterday, but I do think that investors around the world heard this and did not like what they heard, and the U.S. investors followed suit. And so at some level, let's put things in perspective. Since Friday, the markets are down, call it about 3%. The S&P's down, call it about 3%, 3.5%. NASDAQ's actually up slightly as we're taping this since last Friday. There's the big FANG stocks that make up the majority of the NASDAQ are still seen as somewhat of a safety trade. And I think until or unless that mindset ends, you're not going to see the underperformance from the NASDAQ. Now, when you do start to see that underperformance, that's going to get really nasty, is my feeling, because then where will people be hiding? Because that would sort of be the last bastion of the stock market. But on a day like now, where I see Amazon essentially unchanged on an otherwise lousy tape, and this is in spite of them getting an EU antitrust inquiry overnight, by the way, which is bad news. Certainly, it can't be spun as good news. Whether or not you think this will turn out to anything, we can debate that. And I'm certainly no expert on EU antitrust legislation, but the headline is not a positive headline. There's no way to spin that as a positive headline. But because there's this second wave mentality, some of the stocks that are higher today are Amazon very slightly, Walmart up about 1%, Netflix up about 1%, and you are still seeing some outperformance in places like the rest of the FANGs, let me call them. Is this something that's going to break? Who knows? Usually, when there's very narrow leadership, it doesn't end well, but I can't put a finger on when it is. But when it does, that's really going to be that would be nasty if and when that happens, unless there's some other investing motif to pick up the slack, and that's hard to do when you're talking about trillion-dollar companies plus in the case of Microsoft and Apple and Amazon. So am I worried that today is the big one? Doesn't seem like it, at least as of now. I think there was a lot of euphoria that needed to come out of the markets, and I think that's what we're seeing today. That said, some of the most crazy euphoric stocks are actually up a bit. I'm seeing rallies in the bankrupt stocks, and I'm working on a piece now. I hope to get that out later today about what goes on in bankruptcy and why these rarely turn out well. But when I see this kind of speculation returning, when I see that people are hiding out in very highly valued stocks, tells me that this is so far just a little bit of letting a little air out of the balloon, as it were. Have a good day, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.